Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad that you decided to join us on this Thursday evening to hear about the state of the council from the Council Key 3. But before we get started with all that, I have just a few other things that I want to share. We are all well aware of the significant weather event that happened last Saturday, impacting Sid Richardson Scout Ranch and the Orion District Camporee and the Wood Badge course that was happening at that time. I am super thankful and grateful for the staff and the volunteers who ensured the safety of everybody on the property, and certainly very grateful that there was no damage to the property. So, as we continue through our busy storm season, I hope that all of you will continue to be mindful of weather conditions and stay safe. We want everybody to have a fun and fantastic scouting experience, but that includes being safe. Secondly, I want to assure you, if you've been following any of the news around the Texas legislation that governs camps, you know that that has been in the news quite a bit of late. We have a plan. We are executing that plan to meet the requirements of the Texas legislature. And I am confident that we will be operating Worth Ranch Summer Camp in just a few weeks. So with that, let's do a little recap of 2025. So let's look at our stats from last year. It was another great year for scouting in Longhorn Council. As you can see, the number of Eagle Scouts, the number of service hours, the number of awards and advancements earned, again, were another stellar year for the council. So super proud of each and every one of our scouts, how they contributed to their community, and how they had and the leaders that had an impact on those scouts. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the others in the Council Key 3. And first off, we have Greg Buell, our Council President.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Next up, it's my pleasure to introduce John Harrell, our Council Commissioner.
Good evening, everybody. Glad you're with us.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to be hearing first from Greg Buell, and we'll be back again a little bit later in the presentation. So, Greg, it's all yours.
Thank you, Wendy. And good evening, Longhorn Council. I appreciate you joining us tonight. For those of you who do not know my background, I'm approaching 2 decades as a volunteer in the program, serving in unit leader roles at the Cub and troop level. And I'm in my 4th year on the board, serving as a member, a committee lead, and now as the president board chair. In my non-scout life, I'm a C-level business leader. As a volunteer, I've been with you through all the challenges with you over the last decade. We've stayed strong, and you've kept the program resilient, and I'm proud to stand next to you in celebrating all of the accomplishments that Wendy just mentioned. Despite these successes, we do have some challenges in the areas of membership, finance, and facility that we feel you really need to be in the know about, and is the central focus of our council update this evening. While membership has continued to decline nationally, we have seen similar reductions in membership. As you can see in the upper right portion of the chart, we have maintained roughly 6 million business, while our membership has declined from 20,000 youth to around 8,200 youth in the last decade. We're currently have 400 units and 4,000 plus volunteers. One of the specific areas of concern, other than recruiting new members, is the low 46% retention of our Cub Scout age youth. We receive 2/3 of our revenue from non-members, and the executive board has been very deliberate in attempting to shield the membership from inflationary cost increases. The fundraising team has been fairly active and successful in creating community events to help raise the funds for the council. However, these challenges of raising funds from the community has limited our top line revenue and thus limited our flexibility to innovate. As you have been likely aware, our facilities and properties have suffered over time from lack of repairs and deferred maintenance and upgrades over the years to broken and old facilities. We've been on a path of change this trajectory over the last several years, as you've seen in our makeover of Tohoya Camp, and we are limited in our ability to upgrade all of our properties as fast as some might like, based off the pace of our fundraising and capital allocation of dollars. Despite this current reality, Scouting remains strong and vital and essential for youth development. So we need to find ways to mitigate each of our challenges. We will expand on each of these challenges over the next several slides and talk about solutions that we can employ going forward to improve future outcomes and to ensure the success of the program long beyond the time that any of us will be involved with it. I'd first like to talk about growing membership and improving Cub retention. Our first priority really here is membership. Membership's been declining, as I mentioned, significantly over the past few years and has been accelerating in recent years. It is well known in scouting that if we recruit Cub Scout ages youth well, if we do a good job in bringing in the younger scouts, well, it'll provide an awesome program, and we'll have strong membership that will basically flow as the cadre of those young scouts basically progress on their path through the program. It is essential to the health of our membership, and it will remain strong. Growth measurements will continue to improve the retention measures, and this takes fun, well-planned programs, better bridging processes and events, and continued family engagement. As you can see in the charts on the top right, over the last 3 years, we have been reasonably successful in improving the ratio of Cub Scouts, thereby improving the pipeline to future scouting programs. The overall numbers of youth in each age group have decreased substantially. Some of this is the effect after the LDS decision to leave the program and the effect of the COVID shutdown and the flow-through impact to the economy. Despite these challenges, we need to find new ways and new methods to reach families to reach our goal of boosting recruitment and year-over-year retention. On a positive note, our Voice of the Scout responses indicate that our members are still positive and feel very good about the value and the outcomes that our program has to offer, and we need to lead with that message in our communities. In a sense, our program has become kind of the best kept secret, and it's time for that secret to get back out there in the open for us to take advantage of marketing it. And so over the next few slides, John Harrell, our Council Commissioner, is going to provide some more detail on membership growth and retention solutions. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to John. Please take it away.
Hey, thanks a lot, Greg. And thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is John Harrell, and I've been Longhorn Council Commissioner for 2.5 years. This is my 3rd year and have thoroughly enjoyed it and working with all of you out there. But recently, Wendy, Greg, and I attended a scouting conference in Richmond, Virginia. It was communicated to all attendees, including Longhorn Council, that the Cub program needs to show a little improvement, like Greg was just saying. You know, we all know how important Cub Scouting is to the program. So Longhorn Council recently, over the last couple of weeks, has set new membership goals for 2026, and the districts have also set their goals. So if you have any questions about what the goals are, ask any of us, ask your district commissioner, ask your DE, and they'll let you know. But I can't emphasize this enough. We need more families to get involved and join. And one way to do this is by increasing visibility. We've been talking about this for a while on a lot of calls, and attending scheduled events. Events like Memorial Day flag ceremonies that's coming up, the City Council Pledge Allegiance ceremony, art festivals, youth game nights, and other community events. You get the picture. So on the next slide, to help manage the process, Unit Key 3 leaders should review the member renewal and member opt-out reports at all times. They should be looking at those weekly, if at least at a minimum monthly. The Key 3 leaders can pull those reports, and as a backup, the district commissioners send those out once a month, and Hector Reyes sends those out to the district commissioners as another backup. So the reporting is there. We know who's renewing and we know who's opting out, but retention communication is really vital to our membership success. And some might say it's even more important. It costs more to get a new member than it does to hold on to a member. So send emails, send text messages, but more importantly, call the member on their phone and ask why they opted out. Write it down, make a list, and even if it's just one person, send it in, send it to the DE, send it to us, especially if there's a problem. If any kind of a problem occurs, we want to know about it. If they're leaving because, hey, they're too heavy in sports and they've got 10 things on their plate and scouting had to go, it's understandable. But Longhorn Council has approximately 128 commissioners. I'd like you to think of them as our customer service professionals standing by to support you. And remember, we're not Big Brother. We're not out there watching everything you do to gripe on it. We're there to help you. We're customer service for you. We get answers for you. If your unit has not been contacted by a commissioner, please reach out to your district commissioner. Reach out to me. Let us know. We'll get you the support you need. Next slide. Some of the support National Longhorn Council and the commissioners offer can be found in the Membership Application Manager, which basically tells you where new members come in, the Membership Corner, which is a national site, and the newly added Longhorn Council Membership and Recruitment Resource, which a lot of the pictures on these slides are actually from that resource. And after the webinar, a resource page with links will be forwarded to y'all. And the next slide, if you're in business, which many of you are, and you're looking to generate, website traffic, you understand that you need to be found, right? Being found is essential in sales and to just about any kind of business, especially in today's day and age. So be intentional and promote your unit through social channels. Social media helps drive families to the events that you're putting on. And it also drives families to the Join Now page. And if you go out to the Longhorn Council page, you'll see that the Join Now button has moved up in ranking. We're collecting analytics and metrics on it, and we are getting a mini snowball effect. More people are coming in. But if you go out and you promote scouting and Longhorn Council, your district, your unit, and they have no place to go, they'll fall flat. Or they'll say, hey, is there a paper app I can fill out? But we want those, what we call leads, to come into the application manager. So to support your efforts, I've created a social media calendar, for lack of better words, that I'll forward to you after this webinar, or Anna will forward it out to you. It includes images, verbiage by channel, links, and it also includes videos. So it kind of looks like that. You probably can't see it. But anyway, it's a 4-pager. Have fun with it. Change it up. Fit it to your needs. Call it your own. I really don't care. I just want to give you something for the next 8 weeks that you could say, hey, here's the verbiage, here's a graphic, and here's a link. That's all you have to do. Just go out and place it. So next is new member coordinator position has been around for quite a while, as you know. And I think that however you look at it, it probably needs a little bit of a makeover, is a light word you might use. So Simon McLean, ACC of NMCs, and Ellie Morrison, our past president, are teaming up with leaders council-wide to inspire units to add an NMC if they don't have a new member coordinator. In some cases, they might have a membership chair and an NMC. In some cases, they may not have any. So that's coming, and I know Simon and Ellie are working hard, so they'll be out there reaching out to you guys through the district commissioners and DEs. Something else that's coming your way this summer is waiving youth fees for active duty military, reserves, and National Guard. National will send details, but for now, for the new renewal active military youth, registrations must be online. Can't have any paper apps. Military status must be verified through a third-party company, which National is going to provide, and if validated, a one-time code will be provided to the parents of the youth to waive those fees. And as a reminder, council fees will still be collected online because you have the national fees, we have the council fees. Those council fees have to be collected for Longhorn Council. Bottom line, we have plenty of tools to move scouting forward and keep scouting fun. And isn't it really all about having fun? You can go to there you go. I joined scouting because my family, I wanted to have fun. I had a great time. That's where I met everybody on this call. Greg and I worked together for years at 1910. But if you haven't seen Cub Chat Live, it's a must see. You've got to see these videos, and I'm guessing most of you have seen it. But please, please share those videos with everybody. There are so many wonderful videos there in that bank. It's so educational. Embrace all social channels and spread the word. As Greg was saying, we've got to get the word out so that we can generate the family's interest to get them to the join now so that we can onboard them. I mean, basic process, right? Open all communication channels to retain the scouts. We need to retain scouts, especially during the first few months of their journey. Those first 3, 4, 5, 6 months are so important. We've got to make sure that they're taken care of. Don't let them be the wallflowers sitting in the back of the room. Walk up, shake their hand and say, hey, how can I help you? Hey, my name is John Harrell. What's your name? What do you do? How many kids in scouting? How many kids do you have? Go through the whole gambit. Think back when you joined scouting and how you were approached. Did you have a one-on-one conversation that got you excited about scouting? I had quite a few one-on-one conversations, and then I was brought into a little room with about 5 or 6 other adults, and we conversed about everything scouting had. And by the time I left that meeting, I was bouncing off the walls. I was so excited. So what expectations did you have for your kids and yourself? Are you still interested in building a legacy? I hope you are. I know I am. I know everybody on this call is. So remember, you're making a difference and you're not alone. So thank you for your time this evening. I'll throw it back over to Greg.
Thank you, John. I'm jealous. You get to talk about how scouting is fun, and I get to talk about financial stuff. But seriously, the next leg of our stool that supports our program is ensuring our financial sustainability. Membership obviously has a direct corollary impact, to the financial foundation, but there's a lot of other things that impact this as well. The economy does have an effect on families' discretionary income. Recent inflationary pressures have caused some families to tighten their belts and limit the extracurricular activities for their youth. We've seen this shift in where we get our funding, with a greater pressure to generate revenue from foundations, including the Longhorn Foundation, as well as community events and investment and character events, as seen in the chart in the upper right side of the slide. Program fees is the last area that the board looks to increase. As you can see from the chart in the lower right, since the COVID incident, with our membership decline, right, it's coincident, the council has moved from subsidizing each youth a bit less than $200 a year to subsidizing each youth by over $500 per year. There are many levers to pull to improve this situation, in addition to the efforts that the council fundraising staff can do. Specifically, timely renewals of membership registrations. I mean, that's absolutely key. And it's kind of the map that we use to be able to see where we're going and how we're tracking. Increased fundraising through popcorn and camp cards. And I've been there myself. I know, from the days at the Cub and at the troop level, right, that can be tough. But at the end of the day, right, those are the chosen programs that we've got sponsorship on. And if we stand behind them and promote them, they do work and they do provide revenue into the program. If we can reduce the annual subsidy for each youth, we will have more flexibility to provide sponsorships and other assistance for families. And one of the goals of Camp Tahoyah improvement is to generate excess revenue, right, so that the executive board can sell the compatibility of scouting with other programs and attract more youth into the program. And that council staff can provide more subsidies and sponsorships and potentially increase the return to the units from popcorn and camp cards, and potentially eliminate the unit level investment in character events. These are all aspirational, but it basically takes kind of a shift in our mindset and our approach. At the end of the day, we want to sell the compatibility of our scouting program with the other extracurricular activities that we compete with, so that it doesn't become an either or type situation and a distressed income and economy situation. we have to elevate the value of our program to stand above the other programs that we're competing against. The third leg and final leg of our stool and the essential areas of focus that we're talking about tonight, once again, being membership, financial sustainability, and the last one being the impact and the updating of our properties and facilities. We all know, and we all have had memories, right, both as youth and adults, looking at our properties and the impacts that they've had on our people. And we know that we have 3 major camp properties and 2 service centers in the Longhorn Council. We're blessed to have these assets, as many councils have had to liquidate these properties to successfully get through the bankruptcy. We have been divesting of some of the smaller, non-essential properties that the council owns that don't have a strategic value in our overall direction, with a recent example being the Hills and Hollows in Denton. We're intent at this point to keep all of these properties that remain and improve them as we can raise funding to do so. However, the real need is for approximately about $75 to $100 million in safety upgrades and improvements to really bring our properties up to modern standards that have an appeal for our families and non-members who might use our facilities. For a $6 million business, this amount is quite substantial and suggests that it will take a deliberate process of fundraising and upgrades over many years. These improvements are not nice to haves. They will create better experiences and result in higher retention and recruitment. As mentioned, we've made strategic investments in Camp Tahoya to increase the top line revenue, as well as expose the community to scouting with the goal of converting non-members into members. We are working in the background to assess other strategic investments in Sid Richardson, as well as Worth Ranch. In parallel, we are working prioritized incremental improvements through our capital planning process and leveraging our National Camp Accreditation Program, otherwise known as NCAP, to prioritize strategic and incremental changes over the next 5 years as part of our strategic plan. The purpose of sharing all of this information with you all is not to discourage. I know that, negative trends and certainly the burdens that, that we've talked about can certainly cause one to take pause and really think about what does that mean. But it's really designed to educate and inform and serve as a call to action for all of us to enable us to reverse these trends and take control of our future. I mean, let's face it, we have a spectacular program. It has positive outcomes, and we all know, we've seen it. Everyone on this call knows that scouting changes lives for the better. I can tell you this weekend, I had the joy of working with one of my former SPL leaders at the troop level, who is now a senior at Texas A&M University. He's in the Corps Cadets, and I had the opportunity to join him this weekend. I was down there with my son as well, and he took command of the Corps Cadets outfit, the same outfit that my father was a commander of 70 years ago. And that was pretty impressive and a memorable moment for me, and worth sharing because it was kind of a full circle moment. This was a youth that I had invested in, years and years ago. I mean, he's been out of the program for at least 4 or 5 years. And now I had the opportunity to see the impact of the investment that we made in that youth and the positive outcomes, what he's become as far as a citizen in the community. And that's just one example. I bet if we went around this group of attendees, we'd hear countless stories like the one that I just experienced this weekend. And, we want to obviously celebrate the fact that we have the opportunity to share those moments. But I think what we really want to talk about and transition to here is really what our shared path forward really looks like, right? And it comprises of really 2 things, a couple of things. First, what we're already doing, how council can support us, what the real vision is, and what our role is in basically becoming an ambassador to recruit other ambassadors. I was reading a book with some of my executive staff that I work with here at the company that I work for, and it's a John Maxwell book, and there's an equation one of the elements of what John Maxwell teaches is the impact of multiplication as opposed to addition. And what we're talking about here is we're all ambassadors, but we're talking about becoming multipliers and creating other ambassadors like us to basically go out and create a grassroots program, right? To grow this program and get it back in the front mindset of the community. And so at the council level, we've had an annual membership plan that we've been working on and refining and spending a lot of effort and energy to improve and maximize. And it's been published and it's being worked aggressively. The executive board has officially approved a level of cash reserves to provide more flexibility in weathering the economic events and circumstances that we mentioned so that we have a solid footing and we have the ability to take our underutilized properties and add to our capital resources. Council provides training, staff, properties, facilities, and is continuously improving their marketing resources. They've come a long way. I don't know if you have seen, basically the improvements to our website and some of the social media campaigns and other things that are going on. But the output, what's going out there in the public is very, very professional looking and presents an image that I think we would all be proud of. Your role in this mission is to recruit youth, with an urgent request for each of you to recruit at least one new member in the next few months. Work with the staff to retain every unit so that our span of available units is close to each member and each potential member's neighborhood. Volunteer and recruit other volunteers, and help us fundraise both at the unit level as well as at the district and council level. Fact of the matter is that success in scouting, as I've said many times, happens one conversation at a time. One conversation with a parent, one conversation with a youth, one conversation with a volunteer to motivate them to have one conversation with a parent and one conversation with a youth. It just is a rinse, repeat, and cycle. And as we move forward, our goal here is to create a vision where we have more youth with stronger programs and a sustainable future. And we really value the role that each and every one of you play in helping to deliver those outcomes. So now it's time for us to hear from you. We'd love to understand kind of what's on your mind and what you have to say. And so we're going to transition to our Q&A portion of our conference today. And with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Michael Kaywood, past council president and current chair of our strategic planning committee, who will serve as the moderator and host for the Q&A section of our conference tonight. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Greg. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A button on your screen. We do have a number of questions here already, and so I'll start adding. If you'll start adding questions, I'll start answering questions. So here we go. Wendy, first question, simple question. How come we don't get any United Way funding anymore?
That's a great question, and not one with just one simple answer either. Some of it has to do with how United Way has evolved itself as an organization. They now have many of their own programs that they fund. I can't speak to how well their fundraising is going, so I don't know if they're raising more or less money. I don't have visibility to that. But one of the other things that we found with United Way money is the amount of reporting and requirements needed to secure that funding made it a heavily staff managed endeavor. And so certainly as the amounts kept shrinking and shrinking, one of the things that, we evaluated is, okay, how much time and resources are we spending to secure the money, and how much money are we getting? And so it really became what's the most effective way? And currently, our most effective way to raise money is through our special events, particularly our Sporting Clays events. The Investment in Character campaign is next, and then certainly our foundation gifts are up there as well. So we have lots of different ways that we get money, but yeah, United Way is just not a viable source anymore.
Greg, here's a question for you. As you talked about ambassadors, the question is basically there's a statement: we've done a pretty good job re-engaging adults who've earned Eagle Scout as a youth. Well, certainly we want to engage them for their financial resources and support, and maybe just even in the broad category of engaging all Scouting alumni. What kinds of activities and steps can be taken to engage Eagle Scouts and alumni?
Yeah, that's a great question, Hank, and I appreciate you asking it. We identified last year Eagle Scouts as kind of an untapped resource, and we started to kind of working with Wendy and James Clark, started to put together and Dan to put together a program and kind of a platform to try and re-engage them. And the step one of that was really through social interaction, providing kind of a networking opportunity for our Eagle Scouts to come together and kind of bring them back into the fold and kind of create networking opportunities for them to to enjoy themselves. Obviously, there's been several events that have taken place over the last several months. I think they're trying to at least one event a month, maybe every other month, certainly at the minimum. But as those events have been being put together, we're starting to see some success with that. The next step, obviously, is to look for ways to engage them and get them to become more active in the program. And that can be in a multitude of different ways. Obviously, even if they don't have youth, right? If they, depending on what their interests are, they could be involved at the unit level. Certainly, getting them to volunteer on board committees is another way of re-engaging them and leveraging their expertise. A lot of these people are now out in the early stages of their career in the community and have developed valuable skills. And so doing a skills assessment of those folks and trying to understand kind of what their skill set is and what their appetite for involvement is and their availability of time, and then kind of marking them, and trying to figure out, okay, where can we best utilize them? And so, socialization, skills assessment, and then really kind of an action plan as we kind of build what I'll call a kind of a formal cadre of regular participants in those events. And so, we're taking baby steps right now, and certainly it's a crawl, walk, run. But we've been pleased with the work that James and the council team have done on this so far, and certainly look forward to continuing to grow it and leverage it. But you're absolutely right; it's an untapped resource, and we need to do a better job of taking advantage of it.
All right. Thank you, Greg. John, I have a question for you. Does the Longhorn Council collect metrics on unit performance via Scout Book? Membership levels, advancement retention, camping activities, all with the purpose of studying which units are successful and how they accomplish that success.
They do. The metrics are in Scout Book. Ironically, without a youth in the program anymore, I don't even have access to Scout Book. I need to defer to Wendy or Kevin O'Keefe to grab those metrics for me. But we also use Google Analytics to look at all the traffic coming into our websites. Of course, that doesn't have to do with the individual youth, and I know Kevin Wassey has been tracking the hours recently and posting those on, I think, in the weekly newsletter, hasn't he, Wendy? The total volunteer hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the stats we get from Scout Book.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you're collecting, Wendy, actual youth metrics down, that granular or not, but I know they're collected in Scout Book.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because we've never gone looking for stats on our members through that. We use some other tools, so it'd be interesting to see what can be gained there. I've made a note to look into that.
Yeah.
All right. Wendy, question for you. Are we ever going to offer summer camp at Camp Tahoya?
That's a great question. So, not summer camp like we do at Worth Ranch currently, but there is very much an option for you to build your own summer camp at Camp Tahoya. What that might look like is you can decide how many days, how many nights, whether you want to cook your own meals or have Camp Tahoya provide those meals, and even what program and what merit badges you want. And I call it the build your own camp. So not a summer camp, but certainly a longer camp experience potentially, and a different way to scout. We're actually really interested to have some troops try this option because we think some parents and leaders might like it more, being able to pick which days and how many days. Um, we're curious whether, a the current length of summer camp, if that's a burden on working parents and their ability to get away for a whole week for summer camp. So yeah, if you are interested at all, don't hesitate to contact me or the Camp Tahoya team.
Wendy, I got a couple more questions about camps. I'll throw
Mhm.
it over to Sid Richardson. We're not doing summer camp at Sid Richardson.
Correct.
Um, there's so much land and facilities. It's a great resource for the council. Have we thought about renting out camp spaces for other groups or doing summer camp type program utilizing the land in Lakefront?
Yeah, great questions. We have lots of council committees who are looking into and considering all of those options. We have a lot of very engaged volunteers who are trying things, building plans to further utilize and better utilize all of our properties. So we are getting a lot better, particularly at Camp Tahoya with usage of outside groups. And so we're just starting to scratch the surface at that, and we hope to extend that to our other properties as well.
Another question on camps, Wendy, really related to Camp Tahoya. A number of units in our council have a difficult time spending their unit budget to go to Camp Tahoya and pay the fees that are required there. However, they are doing a lot of service work on the camp. So, is there a conversation about getting some credit for doing that service work in lieu of paying the fees?
Yeah, great question. So, a couple of different things. So, what we have found is some of our units are not paying attention to the discount code when they make their reservations at Camp Tahoya. So, you want to make sure that you use Scouting 2025 as your discount code, because if you don't do that, you're paying full price, which is meant to be our non-member price. So we have found that has been an error that some of our scouting groups have been doing. So make sure you're using the discount code since you're members. And secondly, make sure that you're also aware of, especially for the adventure passes, which are the staff-led activities, make sure that you are using the scaled pricing format, okay? And we've got some specific handouts that speak to that. So the larger the group, the less you pay per youth for those activities. So you might want to also think about having getting together with other units and doing camping together and having a larger group so that you get those discounts per person. And then last but not least, I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to the Camp Tahoya team about doing an exchange, camping for service hours. If you didn't see the newsletter, we just announced that Dennis Elliott is the new general manager for Camp Tahoyam, effective here tomorrow. And many of you I know have familiar with Dennis for his many years as a staff member here with the council. So I would reach out to Dennis and have that conversation and explore that with him.
Thank you, Wendy. John, a question for you, and it was brought up a little bit earlier relative to our measurement of units, but this really comes from maybe a higher looking view. Given that we've had a 2 to 3 year declining trend in Cub membership growth, have we identified the causes to address some of the root issues that we've got? What are the macro trends? And maybe not just on the, say, negative side of that, but on the positive side, in light of that environment, those units that are growing, what are they doing right?
Well, they're getting out. They are meeting. They are attending Roundtable. Roundtable is always a good place to meet and network. And they are, selling popcorn. Popcorn's big, for both the Scout and the Longhorn Council. As far as trends, I'd say that we're coming out of the woods from the COVID era. We've been talking a lot about that. We just had a board retreat down at Tahoya, and that was one of the things we talked about, Michael, was, what happened over the last 4 or 5 years to get us into this hole, and how are we coming out of it? And as we build the packs and build that funnel, we're going to get more that can actually go into Scouts BSA. There was another question in there that I'd also like to address with this question. Was someone had asked, I haven't seen a lot of advertising, for Longhorn Council. And we just had a meeting, I think it was this week, with Wendy, and you're not going to see a lot of online social media advertising directed to us. You're going to see that advertising is going outward. It's going to over 600,000 people that are not part of Longhorn Council and are not wearing the Longhorn Council badge right now. So you won't see a lot of it because we're spending the money outward to try to draw those people in to the packs and get to that join now button, and to click on that and get that person into your hands so that they can call you and join your pack or join your troop. Hopefully I answered some of the question there.
Yeah, thank you. Wendy, I'll throw this one to you. Is the full new YPT or SYT course required every year instead of the refresher course?
No, actually, once you have taken the full length course, you simply need to do the refresher course after that. However, you do need to get a perfect score on the refresher course for that to work. If you don't, then you have to go back and take the full course. We have noticed, or I've heard from a few people, that depending on the timing of when you last took the course, it seems like the refresher course isn't an option. So no, again, you should know that there might be a little glitch. If you think you're eligible for the refresher based on the time of when you last took it, you might not actually quite be eligible. So, but yes, going forward, you will absolutely be eligible for the refresher course.
Yeah, John, well, actually, I'll open it to all of you. You might want to commit on this. What are the principal reasons that Cubs and Scouts do not renew? And what do we need to be focusing on?
Well, that comes up every year. There's a lot of opting out right now, and we're trying to dig in to get the reasons of why the majority are opting out, not just renewing. And one of my requests during my presentation was for the unit key 3 leaders to actually reach out to those opt-outs, whether it's 1 out of your unit or 50 in a district, and we all know that band takes time, karate, sports, football, baseball, soccer, everything. It's very competitive. And there's a lot of screen time happening right now with our youth. So between when we were young, there wasn't really many screens except for the TV in the house, and my mom wouldn't let me watch it. We had to go outside and play, right? So we're competing with screen, we're competing with other sports, band, activities, every single thing under the sun. So one reason they may not be renewing, but what I'm looking for is there an actual issue? If there's no issues and we're just competing with other programs, then we have to get a little more competitive and become number one in their minds and get the word out just a little bit more, like I was talking about in the social media. So I'll hand it over to Wendy if she has any other thoughts, or Greg.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, John. Some of the data and some of the anecdotal responses that I've been seeing is, at the Cub level, just structure and organization of programming is key. I mean, I know being a den leader it's a lot to juggle, and I think the key there really is to follow the blueprint and really try and make sure that these young Cubs feel like they belong, and kind of delivering a value added program in the eyes of their parents who are taking the time to bring the youth there. Youth want to belong. They want to feel a part of something. They want to be engaged. And, John went through a lot of resources earlier in the slides of, hey, it doesn't have to be an original idea, right? Follow the blueprint. And, that is probably one of the biggest things at the Cub Scout level that I keep hearing over and over is that, they take their youth to a den meeting, it's chaos. It's not a lot of organization, and then they don't come back. And so, certainly we can have an impact and control that. At the scout level, it's different, right? John was talking about all the competing activities, and being a scoutmaster myself for several years, I found myself dealing with band and baseball and athletics and swimming and diving, and trying to figure out a way to build the program around all of those other competing activities, and letting youth know, hey, it's okay. You don't have to come to every troop meeting. You don't have to come to every camp out, and reassuring their parents, you're not a failure if you're not 100% committed to everything that the program does, right? We offer a variety of programming and activities. We recognize that people have different schedules, and, reassuring parents and youth that, it's okay if you go dark for a couple of months, because, it's the heavy part of a particular season. I remember, every year you would lose the band kids from the end of July basically to the beginning of November. You were lucky to see them. And, you just had to, for leadership opportunities, for service opportunities, for merit badge planning, you just had to work around that. And it just takes a little bit of effort, but realizing that getting those youth to the end of the tunnel, can be very fulfilling, particularly if you help them juggle their busy schedules, but making them feel belong, regardless of whether it's, they belong, whether it's Cubs or whether it's Scouts, I think is essential to retaining them in the program.
Yeah, John and Greg certainly hit a lot of the key points. I think the only thing else I would add is train leaders, units that have a strong culture around expectations of their adults being trained, are often units that are more successful in retaining their youth.
Yeah, and Wendy, maybe you can talk to this a little bit. There's a question around, do we have any research or any data that indicate why youth are leaving the program? I would just add, we do have Voice of the Scout survey information. It's a little bit more higher level than specific, kind of exit interview kind of information, but maybe you could talk to that.
Yeah, the top two issues are unorganized programs and ineffective leaders. So getting them trained and making sure that they're delivering a quality program with whatever role you're in, making sure that happens is invaluable to retaining um, the youth.
Yeah, Wendy, there's a question here about membership decline being attributed to the LDS Church and the United Methodist Church leaving. Can you kind of talk to the percentages there?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can pull percentages uh, right off the bat here, but yes, the LDS departure certainly had a big impact here locally. The my The Methodist Church, we lost chartering organizations. We didn't necessarily lose the the youth and the volunteers. Um, but I will absolutely say, as kind of has been referenced before, I believe it was Greg, that um, during COVID and the Cubs struggling to kind of get any kind of synergy around meeting, really is what gutted the Cub program during that COVID time period. So yeah, it's taken us a lot to get back to and we're not back to pre-COVID numbers, but even to get our Cub Scout numbers because there was a while after COVID where we had more Scouts BSA than we had Cub Scouts. And that is not a good
And it's not
position.
just Longhorn Council, it's nationwide.
Correct.
It's
Very
across the board.
correct.
So we're all experiencing, the same dip.
Yeah, Wendy, I'll just at the national level, prior to the LDS Church leaving, they were 22% of the national membership. And I think the Methodist Church was something like 17, 18%, somewhere in that range. And as Wendy
Yep.
said, we did lose all of the Methodists, but we did lose a large portion of the LDS. Some of the LDS members found other units to join, but there was a pretty significant hit to the overall membership.
Agreed.
Yeah. We have a number of questions in here related to the council camporee that we used to host, and the fact that it was fun and engaging, and a lot of people liked it, but also to the point of representing scouting well, that it showcased who we are and what we do. And so questions are kind of asking, are we going to do it again? Why aren't we doing it? And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Yeah, unfortunately, my tenure started 2019 was the last camporee, and it was a heavy lift on a lot of volunteers and on a lot of staff, uh, and COVID certainly challenged the ability for us to do that. So that took that out of the mix. And with the number of youth that we used to have attending and our current numbers, it's kind of that balance of, okay, how do we find the volunteer resources to put on such a huge event when our numbers have shrunk by so much? So, so certainly a conversation that has happened at the council program volunteer level, and it's something we can continue to consider.
Kind of along the lines, but a different topic. Will Cub Resident Camp return to the Longhorn Council?
Yeah, I saw that one come through, and I'm like, yeah, that's one that we need to because there was another one about outdoor experience for Cubs is so important, and it absolutely is. That's certainly a highlight of the year when our troops do it regularly, right? Probably monthly in most cases, but our Cubs only do it a couple times a year. So yeah, I would love to see a Cub resident camp come back. Some of our challenges, the council calendar and like the best time, and We tried it a couple of years ago during spring break and we didn't get some traction. So I think one of the keys is when is the right time during the year to do that. So if you've got suggestions, throw them in the chat. I'd love to hear when you think we should have it.
Yeah, along the lines of big activities that we have, summer camp has certainly been in a decline over the last number of years. I think COVID kind of put a wrinkle in that. But question, kind of couple questions, couple statements. What's being planned to improve registration recruitment for this year and future years? And I think more of a statement and encouragement to everybody that's on this webcast that Worth Ranch Summer Camp in 2029, 2030 are going to celebrate 100 years of summer camp at Worth Ranch. And so there's a reason if you want to go to summer camp, there's a reason to go now. But when do you want to kind of take that?
I think Greg was Greg going to take that?
Greg, you're going to take that? You want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the tee up there, Michael. 100 years. I mean, wow. Worth Ranch is, say what you want. I mean, it's a beautiful camp and it just offers a diversity of experiences and programming. And some of the best experiences that I had as a leader, were at that property. And 100 years is a big deal. I remember, back when running Troop, we had a rule every other year. We were trying to support the council camp and making sure that, we try and kind of expand out and go experience other camps. I mean, everybody loves Camp A and, and some of the other camps that are out there. But at the end of the day, trying to support the council camp is certainly an important, I think, part of being in the council. And, what better way to do it, as we approach the 100th anniversary. I think that's a great opportunity. And, we're spending a lot of time, and there have been some improvements being made at the camp. I saw another question that would kind of teed up that was kind of along the lines of camp. And somebody asked a question about the Texas legislation and, what happened at Camp Mystic last summer. We've spent a lot of time, as a council and in some of the various committees that support the council. Really, safety is part of our DNA. We actually have an enterprise risk management committee that is part of our council board. We have several board members that are members of that committee, as well as non-board members who have, we have doctors and physicians and other risk experts that basically participate in that committee. And as a matter of fact, I think, earlier this week on the agenda we were going through the emergency action plan for Worth Ranch. That was put together and updated to reflect some of the legislation that came out as a result of Camp Mystic. Obviously, we continually assess, our risk exposure. And that committee does an excellent job of supporting scouters and supporting the rest of the board and supporting the staff, really taking a deep dive and looking into those things and, with a critical eye. Every year for summer camp, the board has a day where they go out to Worth Ranch. I know members of the ERM committee and other board members, walk the camp and make notes and take a look at what's actually going on. Out there. Safety is one of the foundational pillars, really, of everything that we do. And we've had several meetings specifically around the Texas legislation, and as Wendy mentioned, we're working to become compliance basically with the new state law. But a lot of things going on there between properties and enterprise risk management, and I feel like our structure of our organization is probably better than most of the organizations that run summer camps. Along with NCAP standards and the other things that we follow to ensure that we're ready and safety is paramount.
Thanks, Greg. Maybe anybody that wants to take this one. Is there any plans for district-wide Webelo resident summer camps?
Not that I've heard of, but again, I think that's another great suggestion for potentially new activities. So share that with your districts or share that with the council program team, Chet Mary. I'm sure they'd love to hear your ideas about what's missing from our program calendar.
And since we're kind of talking about things that are or are not happening, what is the status of Woodbine in the Scout Reach program? I think a lot of people probably don't really know what that's all about, and maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Scout Reach is an opportunity for low income families to have the opportunity to participate in scouting, even if they don't have the financial resources. They are dedicated units that have paid leaders. We also have in any unit, we have the ability for um, families who need assistance to cover the cost of scouting to submit, and the form is on our website, longhorncouncil.org, to make a request for financial assistance. But in units where the entire unit is supported by council resources, we primarily at this time have Cub Scouts. And so we have been working with a particular troop to cross over those AOLs to that troop. And the leaders in that troop have been partnering with um, um, the Woodbine, the Scout Reach units, and we're starting to see some success there. But we want to expand that even further, so that way they can continue their scouting journey.
All right. John, do you want to take the question about the HOT committee?
Yeah, there was a question from the Heart of Texas and their committee question about marketing. And since it's on the top of my mind, Wendy and I and Kevin and Mark, everybody, we had a very nice meeting the other day about what are we doing, what can we doing, what can we do. And one of the things that Wendy and had already mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, was there's a big reach for the non-member community. So number one, you probably won't see a lot of the advertising happening because we're not targeting the Longhorn Council members. We are updating the website, Longhorn Council website, but I know you want answers that kind of get into the weeds. So that social media campaign of 162,000 through social media campaign is huge because that's going to drive traffic. We're already getting great impressions, hundreds of impressions that are coming in, meaning that people are touching, they're opening, they're seeing the posts. And I think the board already approved, for a more targeted campaign. And I believe that there's a budget for the peach jar, which is pretty. I don't think we always had it, but I know it's that budget is coming up. So there'll be more marketing to try to get more engagement in the peach jar, because I think I heard the statistic was only about 32%, Wendy, were actually opening or viewing the
Yeah, it was a little less than that.
jar.
Yeah,
So,
or right around there.
yeah, so we want to get that raised up.
Yep.
And we're investing a little bit more in Meta again to drive traffic. We're in a technology and a world now, so that's how people are finding us. We're also going to Kevin had mentioned a kind of a new WordPress website to kind of help drive traffic and help drive statistics of actually who is coming to see us. Because we don't get all those statistics from national. I wish we did, but when they go to that Be a Scout website, we don't get any back end statistics on that. I wish we did. I'm trying to, but so we're trying to get a critical mass, at a lower price point, as any business would try to do, and we're also going to map out all the join nights that are coming to a unit near you. Another, thing that was on our wish list is kind of like a Google map with pins on it, but you'll be able to see all the join nights that are happening around the council, which it could be 150 different join nights. So which one is closer to the family? Um, so it'll also cast a wider net to get more family interest. One of the things that we brought up was, 3 different campaigns. One is to the opt-out folks, win them back. We call it a win back program. And one is to a non-member campaign. So we want to, we can use AI video clips to do that. We can use texting, which we have our hands on texting, which we've been using this year. If there was a way that we could win a trip, to Camp De Hoya, if that's in the budget, maybe that, I'm not going to promise anything, but, maybe we could do that. So we want to target more non-members, not just through email, but email, social media, texting. So there's a lot in the pipeline. And one of the things that you've already seen this year, if you haven't, check it out. But each district has their own web, I guess they're driving their own traffic on their own website within Longhorn Council. So, and I know Kevin, and if you don't know him, Kevin O'Keefe, marketing, Kevin Wassey, marketing, they've been working hard to make those pages better so that if people do come in and they go to Pathfinder or Mustang or Orion, they can see who the leaders are right away. And there's a join now button, and there's specifics about that district and where their territory is in our council. So I could probably talk forever on all the little things that, council is working on, but, I want to kind of under promise here and overpay later. So
That sounds like a good plan, John.
there's a lot going on, just to answer your question about marketing, there's a ton, and I'm excited about it because I'm a marketing guy. So.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think there's a number of questions and comments in the question and answers related to access to schools, which is our traditional method of getting new members. And is there a better way to do it? What was specifically called out was Great Valley and Colleyville school district, but I think it probably applies broadly. As well as what I would say, and you mentioned it a little bit, John, the non-traditional ways, texting and other ways going into the marketplace that we may not see because we're already members. We're not the targeted group. But are there strategic partnerships with other youth serving organizations that might also help us recruit new youth?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, and just like John, I could spend a lot of time talking about some of our initiatives in our membership plan and some of the things that we're endeavoring to do. And I'll just highlight a couple. One of the things that we're doing a more concentrated effort around is what we're calling visibility events. So having a table, having a booth where the community's at, and we would highly encourage units to engage with those as well. But if it doesn't work for your schedule, if you think there's some place we need to be, let us know, because we absolutely want to be out there. And back to the marketing piece, we have specific QR codes. So if at one of those events where we've got a booth, that family uses the QR code, we can actually track which visibility event they were at, how they engaged with us, and did they go all the way through the process of actually joining. But so that's one piece of it. We absolutely want to be more visible in the community, and service hours and service projects are another great way to do that. And hopefully all of you know and have heard about our aggressive goal to have 200,000 service hours, or 250,000 in honor of the 250th anniversary of our country. So excited about that as well. And Scouts out doing things in the community is a great way to be visible as well. Now, on the other side of it, okay, many of our PACs have multiple schools that they recruit from. And we absolutely would want more packs to school ratio. That's a big project, and we need many more hands, many more membership volunteers and staff to help us with that endeavor. But that is something that we're working on. We're getting pretty good traction so far this year. We've already had 11 new units, and we've got quite a few in the pipeline. And the priority is on new packs. So we are trying to really have increase that pipeline.
Can I add one thing, Wendy?
Absolutely, go for it, John.
You know, Ed Olson had asked a question, and it so rings true, because back in the day, I don't remember council actually doing it, but it was what he called, council had a scout fair, but I remember district fairs. And I think I remember actually working one with Greg for Mustang.
Yeah, we made hot dogs.
Yeah, we were making hot dogs and giving away root beer, and we were just one of the many units, it kind of in a circle, and all the scouts were out there working in the middle and playing games, and then we invited all the local families, and they came out, and it'd start off slow, and then it would build and build, and next thing you know, you've got 100 people out there. It's organized chaos, but it was great. It was so much fun, and I would suggest that every district do that. And do it, don't wait until the fall to do it, when the beautiful weather is here, but do one in the spring and try it out, but do it as a district. And then we have our fall Fan Fest, which is another great event, which has been building over the last 3 years. It's not the fair, but it is getting people out to activities. So kind of a smaller fair, but I don't think we're going to do it as the Longhorn Council, but the district level, yes.
That's a good point, John. I was looking at another question that somebody asked. They mentioned that it seemed like scouting had become invisible, and they were pondering and opining on the notion of scout shows and other events. And that made me think about something that Wendy was saying. With our 250th anniversary, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for patriotism, and I mean, it's grassroots. Units encourage units to look for ways to get involved in the community and put the uniform on and to be a part of a ceremony, to hold a flag. And community leaders love that. And I know sometimes as a volunteer it can be difficult to support, particularly when we're as busy and as scheduled as we are. But those high impact events that are going to be happening over the summer, are just such a great opportunity to showcase your unit. And another thought is open houses. I know there's been a lot of units that do open houses over the summer and kind of abandon their typical programming and maybe go in line with more fun activities, and encourage non-scout participation basically in that. Older units, scouting units, troops can still recruit and bring in new youth into the program. They don't have to come always through Cubs. And those open houses have in the past, I've seen units be successful with them to attracting people and bringing them and getting exposure.
Yeah.
On the question of fundraising, a number of questions in here about popcorn in particular. And the cost of popcorn, the difficulty of selling popcorn, maybe the competition being the other organization, namely around females, that sells something that maybe is a little more delicious and maybe cheaper priced than popcorn, without leading people too far. And so is there any conversation about what to do there? I mean, I think there's probably a number of tips and tricks that units have, but if you could share one, how to deal with popcorn itself, but two, how to fundraise in general.
Well, I'll tell you what. When I was at the unit level, my wife was working on the committee for fundraising, and we of course did the flowers. Right, flowers were great, and they were very successful in the spring and in the fall. We also had I don't know what we call it, Greg, like a garage sale, to where the unit brought in all the old equipment from past scouters and stuff that was in the barn, and we auctioned it off. And then I had my hands on a bunch of memorabilia, and it was like a silent auction. And then as for the scouts, in I guess to accompany the popcorn, we still did the popcorn and the discount cards, the scout cards, but we also, it was kind of a wash, but we did first aid kits, bought them online, brought them in, and sold them for a profit, and it went into the scout account. So it doesn't just have to be popcorn. While we want popcorn, it's great for scouting. There are so many other ideas that you can bring into the unit to fundraise for your unit. And whether it's $500 or $600 or $1,000, and it's also great for the scouts to build their scout accounts for Scouting BSA. So just a few ideas off the top of my head.
On that point, John, I saw another unit. Every year I get my mulch from them.
Yeah.
And that's, they lay it. I mean, it's a win-win because I hate spreading mulch. It just breaks my back. And
Yeah.
so whenever I get my text, and they're good about following up, and I know the flower sales, that's another good one. The flower sales were pretty actually the profit margin on those for the unit and for the scouts was actually was pretty good. But there are a lot of obviously things along those lines that can be done. But
Yeah, and flags. When I was in Keller, every year I would sign up for the whatever it was, 40, $50 for every holiday they put a flag out front. And then I would encourage, because I was in scouting, all the other neighbors, when I see them at a gathering, I would say, "Hey, have you signed up for your flag?" So we'd get the entire street, both sides with flags. And here I am now. I live up in Frisco. I can't find a troop. I can't find anybody to put flags out except, I mean, we do our own, and that was a great fundraiser for, I think it was a pack and a troop.
The camp cards, John. I mean, I know there was a couple of years there where there wasn't a good anchor, on them. But if you can get a grocery store, the ones that we've done recently again have been pretty powerful, and they sell themselves. I mean, just the marquee coupon on them is the value is worth twice the cost of the card. And if you have organization and set up your locations, that can be a really good fundraiser as well. It just takes a little more organization.
Yeah. Great ideas.
One question I was going to answer earlier, I'll just go ahead and answer it now. It was a question about birth rate statistics compared to the growth of youth in scouting. Just in general, in 2027, demographically, we will reach the peak of births. And so it's a downhill slope from there. So I would say right now our trend has been down while the market has been going up. But soon the market is going to start to trend down, and we're going to have to fight even harder to grow in that environment. However, we have a lot of upside potential because we are only penetrating about 1% of the available youth in our marketplace. And so that says there's a lot of things that we need to be doing to try to attract youth into the program that we haven't successfully done to date.
Trend that I'm seeing, of the youth that are coming into my organization through internships and graduating and starting their careers is you're starting to see a little bit of a flip, right? All the screen time, the engagement, there's value now being placed on disconnecting. I think we're going to see a renaissance for that quality time again. And, I think society is going to reach a breaking point where there's going to be a certain segment that I suspect probably aligns pretty well with our values and our tenets that will embrace the product that we have to offer. And don't underestimate the power of those type of trends. I think we embrace it, and lean into it, and that's going to be a source of being able to pick up youth. I mean, there's so few other organizations to have that can offer what we have to offer. And parents are looking, for ways to build character and to, they all want to produce, responsible youth. And, our program can deliver that. And, I think over time, even though the birth rates are going to go down, if we really lean into the quality and the values of what our program has to offer and create that alignment, for parents, that there'll be an opportunity to pick up a larger share.
And along those lines, Greg, I would add, and a way to attract the adults, the parents, to become trained leaders, because we desperately need that. There's a number of conversations in the question and answer related to getting trained leaders, particularly at the Cub Scout level, and especially in units that are small. It's difficult. And I think back to the earlier conversation, Greg, that you answered about how to get involved, Eagle Scouts and alumni. I think that's a great place where we can connect Eagle Scouts and alumni to units that need some help. Definitely, the commissioners do that on a daily, weekly basis, and we need more commissioners. But if there's a kind of a hot shot opportunity, they live close and they want to join in on that, absolutely. Get with John, get signed up, and start helping, mentoring, giving back.
Yeah,
That's a good point, Michael. I went to 16 years ago. I went to India on a business trip, and I came back and I found out I was elected committee chair of a PAC. And it's been a ride since then. The trained leader, certainly you can't underestimate enough. I mean, particularly at the Cub level. I mean, there was just the quality. I mean, Wendy answered it. I spoke to it anecdotally, right? Quality programming and trained leaders, right? That exists, and quality program equals retention, and it all just kind of manifests from there.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward question. I'll throw this to Wendy. Is there a pursuit of a quality unit program still being promoted? Are we supporting that?
Yeah, great question. That has officially gone by the wayside at the national level. I have, through various committees and whatnot that I serve on, encouraged them to bring it back. I have referenced it to some of our council committees about whether we would potentially create our own program. So it's very much a topic that we're considering. So stay tuned.
All right. Any thoughts to having an Eagle Scout banquet at the council level?
I wish Dan Busby was part of our panel, because I know he would love to answer that question. And so, yes, we are very interested in starting that event, and we haven't just quite got the right momentum around it. So if anybody wants to be a chair of that event, you'll want to talk to Dan Busby, dan.busby@scouting.org. But yeah, we would love to add that to our annual calendar of events.
But currently, the Eagles are recognized at the district banquets, right?
In most districts, I believe so,
In
yes.
most district, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Looks like we're kind of winding down here.
Lots of good questions. Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
this has
Awesome
been
questions.
fantastic.
I've exceeded what I was expecting. I mean, they just they kept rolling in for a while there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I knew folks weren't shy, so thanks for bringing all the great questions.
All right. Well, with that, I'll leave it to the key three if you guys want to make final statement, and we will close up shop.
I'll throw a comment out. Being the council commissioner, I've learned a lot over the last few years. Working with the board and working with the units and working with all the leaders. But I'm also a very competitive person in my own right. We all, as many of you are, and you like to do the best you can. And there's no reason why Longhorn Council, where we are situated in this territory, why we can't be number one. We don't have to settle for number 2 or number 13 or 16 or whatever. We really should be number one. And it's sort of my mission to do everything in my power to give you guys the tools, and the district commissioners and the commissioners and the unit leaders and the DEs, everything I can find and muster up to, finish this year strong and positive and be the number one council in our territory. Maybe even the country, I don't know, but I'm shooting for the territory. So that's the competitive side of me. And my heart's in it, and I'm going to do everything I can for every one of you guys out there. So thank you for attending.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for attending as well. This has been a great showing. We've had lots of lots of folks come online. If you would like for us to do this more often, please let us know. I think we're certainly open to it. If you think there's another format, we considered a variety of formats to bring this information to you. So if you think there's we should do it in person or some other way, yeah, let us know. It's an honor and a privilege to serve as your Scout executive, and I thank you for what you do for our youth each and every day. Thanks so much.
And I guess I'll wrap us up. Once again, thank you for attending. Appreciate everything that you do to support the program, the council, your district, and your local units. I absolutely love the impact and the outcomes that this program has on youth. I got involved with it originally to support my son and my youth. And, here I am. He's long gone and almost graduated from college. And, I found another way to utilize my skills and time and talent and treasure to support scouting in the program. I just encourage each one of you to, one conversation at a time, whether it's with an adult who's on the fence, whether it's with an adult who, maybe needs a little bit more training and, the right nudge to get them fully invested in the program, with the youth, as far as sticking with the program and not feeling like you have to make choices, and that, there's balance that can take place out there with what we, our program and the other activities. And then just out in the community, we got such a good story to tell. And I know it's been hard over the last decade or so with all the blows, that we got dealt. But at the end of the day, we've emerged from it. We're as strong as ever. It's really just about kind of getting the word back out and really, having conversations with those that are outside the program and really promoting it. This program has made me a better leader in the organization that I serve, for my day job. And I know the impact that it's had on all the youth that I've been involved with over the years. And that's a lot to share. I mean, there's a lot of good things to talk about there. And we don't need to be shy about getting out there and really talking about the impact and the outcomes. So just remember, one conversation at a time. Thank you all very much. And I hope you all have a good evening. Thanks for participating tonight.